Welcome to the Biz and Tech Podcast. My name is Blake Dowling. I'm the CEO of Aegis Business Technologies, and we are rocking into year 3 of our podcast. Thank you for your support. Today, we have a very special guest, McKenzie Burleigh, Associate Publisher of Rowland Publishing. Welcome to the show. Love the hat. How's your day?
It's getting warm, which is why I'm happy.
Hell yeah.
The temperature finally changed and coming out of hibernation, and therefore I'm blooming again, I feel like. I do better when I'm warm.
Same here. All right, short story to start today's episode. My book, Professionally Distanced, for anyone watching, put it out last year. I was having coffee with Jay Revel, and he said in 2020, the very tail end of the year, you should put out a book. And I said, yeah, because I've got all the time in the world, don't we all? And he's like, no. Take your 20 best columns of the year, put some fresh introductions on it, find a celebrity if you know one, get them to write a funny intro, which Ken Block from Sister Hazel was kind enough to do. Thank you, Ken. And 6 months later, we did it. And I bring it up because it's very relevant to today's topic, Rowland Publishing. It took a team to get that out the door. Locally, we use Target Print and Mail. Midtown Reader was a very early supporter of the project. Jay Revel was a very early supporter and guide throughout the project. And your team really was the icing on the cake to help with the formatting, the editing process, because we're not just selling it locally, we're selling it internationally on Amazon, and their formatting requirements are very stringent. And we went through, I think, 6 rounds of rejection. And thanks to Jay and your team, we got it out there. It's for sale, professionally distanced, Amazon. Buy 10 copies and get one free, maybe? Sure, why not? But before we get started with the episode, tell us about books and Rowland Publishing, because everybody in North Florida knows about 850 Magazine,
yes.
Tallahassee Magazine. Those are staples in our regional media. Where did books come from?
Well, so the foundation of what we do is publishing. And so surprisingly, a lot of people don't realize we actually also publish about 40 different magazines. And a lot of them you all know that we own, that are what we call proprietary publications, 850, Tallahassee, Emerald Coast, Northwest Florida Weddings. But a lot of magazines that we publish are for other businesses that do other things that just want to have a magazine. Like Visit Tallahassee. We do the visitor's guide for them.
Oh, awesome.
We do in-room publications for a lot of resorts and destinations. And we also publish books. So anything from local books to national books to you name it, legacy books. We've done all sorts of different things, and it's a fun portfolio of information because you get to know people from all different walks of life, different genres of careers, people like yourself. I view you as like a master content creator. You know, it's like you're always coming out with new content in different ways, you know, and so it's fun because publishing has now become something that everyone has access to now, you know, thanks to Amazon really and platforms like that, where you're not having to invest on the pre-production of the printing necessarily, depending on the demand. And so just people's thoughts and people's opinions and ideas is just a new avenue now that people can get their information out there. Same with podcasts, you know.
Right.
I think it's such a cool place to just get content out there and have connection that I'm seeing more and more podcasts come up, and someone said it's going to be like social media. Eventually everyone will have one. I don't know if that's the case, but I just applaud you for all that you do and the content that you put out there.
Oh, thanks. We were trying to be fresh in 2020, come up with something new. What's our competition doing? Let's do something innovative, and here we are. Same with the book. Jay's like, nobody else is going to do anything like this. And our first launching point was actually the Tallahassee Chamber of Commerce's conference.
Yep.
And we sourced with Target Print and Mail locally to do the first 500. So it was a hybrid, you know, regional, national, international effort, but couldn't have done it without you and your team. So thank you and Brian for that.
Our pleasure.
Good stuff. All right, well, let's go back a little bit. Your background, where are you from? Where did you go to school? What did you study? How'd you get to where you are today? Big, multi-layered question.
Okay, so the quick answer is I was born and raised in Utah.
Awesome. I didn't know that.
And yep, I'm a Western girl, hence my hat. I keep the roots with me. And
you watch Yellowstone?
I do.
Okay, sorry to interrupt.
And now I'm in the 1883, which is the prequel to
cool.
Yellowstone.
Anything with that actor, what's his name? Sam, the older gentleman?
Yes, well now...
Anything with him is awesome.
well, now the 1883 is Tim McGraw and Faith Hill and some other folks. So
What
it's a
about the older
completely
guy that was
new
in
cast.
Roadhouse? You know who I'm talking about?
I'm so bad with
Producer
that kind of
Josh,
stuff.
you got a name?
Yeah.
Older Patrick Swayze says, "I'll get plenty of sleep when I'm dead." You know that guy?
Yes. I
All
can't
right,
remember.
go ahead.
But so I was born and raised there. One of my best friends that I met in 4th grade, her family had roots in Tallahassee. She was actually born in Tallahassee, and they did the prepaid college plan for Florida and brainwashed me to choose Florida State University as the college that I was going to, and I'm grateful for that brainwash.
Awesome.
I think I knew what a Seminole was before I knew what college was. And so I just always had that in my mind that I was going to Florida State University, and came to Tallahassee and went to college first at TCC. I couldn't afford Florida State, and they didn't want me at first. And so I'm like, that's all right. I'll just get there. You know, they had a community college, and
That happened to me in Gainesville. They said no thank you first attempt, but I kept trying.
yeah, they're like, who are you? And so moved to Tallahassee and was kind of had my first like wake up moment of, oh my gosh, I have no idea what I just decided to do, but just, you know, stuck with it and really came to love Tallahassee and went to Florida State University and met Brian Rowland my senior year there. And I was going to school for finance and marketing at the time. And the rest is history. Here I am.
That's awesome. Yeah. And so your career started with Rowland?
Technically, in college, yes. Now, I was working for Patients First in college. And I would say that's where my career kind of started, was with Patients First, implementing a software program for them. They were going from paper to digital at the time. And so I was helping implement that with their physicians and their nurses by teaching them how to use it, which was really cool because I got to learn how to read MRIs and blood work and you name it. And, you know, that's where my boyfriend's like, you're Dr. Kenzie, because I know how to solve everything if you're sick. No. And then helped them with collections, coincidentally, at the time, and
That's
learned
a good
a lot
life
about
skill.
health insurance and, you know, what CHP and Blue Cross and Blue Shield will pay and not pay. And but then I started working for Rowland as kind of a stepping stone because my plan was moving to New York. And, you know, I was going to go do an internship with Vogue, and that's where I wanted to go. I had an obsession with Vogue since I was a kid, and magazines in general. And I met Lori Yaton, which back then was Lori McGee. She was an account executive and still is to this day at Rowland Publishing. And our boyfriends were friends, kickboxing partners. And she was like, you need to come, and if you're going to go to New York, you know, you should come check out our business and work there for your last year of college before you move up there so you have a little bit of experience. And I was thinking, oh, I'm sure it's not a great company, you know, like what could Tallahassee possibly have in magazine world? And I was blown away with the quality of the product. And then I went to their Best of Tallahassee event at the time, which was at the UCC in partnership with Dimes, March of Dimes, which was the wine festival. And that's where I met Brian. And I met Larry Davidson, who was the creative director at the time, and just, you know, fell in love with the people and applied for a position there actually in the finance department. And that's where I started at Rowland. And Brian taught me a lot about, you know, if you move, you're going to be a small fish in a big pond. If you stay here, you know, you can progress so much faster, and I can teach you everything I know. And, you know, he made me a lot of promises and offers that just, I was like, I just kept saying yes to him, and I kept just saying yes to him. And I'm so glad I did.
That's awesome. That's a great story. You know, I can think of so much commonality with my own career and decisions you make. You know, I was obsessed with Los Angeles at a young age and working in the music business, and I did that. But then I pivoted from Atlanta, working in the music business downtown. We rented the 6th floor of the Capricorn Records building, so I got to walk into the Allman Brothers Gold and Platinum Records every day, very inspirational. And then they had their resurgence in the 90s with Cake and 311 and Widespread Panic and all these other bands. So they had the
Why
best of
did
the
you
old.
leave?
Well, a little thing called Napster happened in 2001, and the music business literally exploded. And I was like, do I want to continue doing this? Do I want to move out west? Do I want to stay here? And I got into IT work. And, next thing you know, fast forward 16 years, I'm the CEO of a company here in Tallahassee that I'm very proud of. And we're honored to be able to support the businesses and their technology needs here in our market. But awesome. Thank you for sharing that. So this is a pretty standard question, at least the past couple of years. New hobbies from the pandemic. We all found ourselves doing different things. Of course, cleaning comes to mind. We painted everything in our house, put in the outdoor television, new couches, rugs just magically started appearing. Jeannie came home one day with 3 kittens. I'm like, what? What's the pandemic? That's like the excuse for anything. Did you just drink that bottle of wine? It's the pandemic. We got 3 cats now. Anyway, what happened, hobby-wise or on the home front different for you in the past couple of years?
Yes. Well, I think for the first time in my life, I was still.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
And I had never been still before. And I used to think I never wanted to be still. I like every minute of 18 hours of every day, kind of something planned, something scheduled between work and personal. I'm always going. And that's just my personality. I have a curious interest of everything. And so for the first time, it was kind of just like I sat there and I started to really enjoy being still, listening to music, cooking food. I got a piano, and so I started trying to play the piano again, which I had played as a child.
How cool is that?
And fighting my mother, that I hate piano. And I was like, man, I wish.
That's fun.
So I had there's an app that can give you lessons on the piano, and it's kind of like a Nintendo game where it's like you're passing levels, and it can hear how you play, so it's very sensitive if you've actually messed up the rhythm or the melody or the timing or the key or whatnot. So that was a new hobby for me that I started. I started painting.
That's fun.
I put an easel in my backyard and just would go at it. I became...
What happened to these works?
Oh, they're built up, man.
Are they prominently displayed in your home?
No.
Christmas gifts for mom and dad?
Neither. Like they are for myself, and I would not gift them to anybody probably unless somebody really wants them down the road. But it was fun, That
sounds fun.
Of course, it was a challenging time, but I was really able to kind of like be still with myself and be happy with that, which was, I think, a good thing for me. And it really slowed me down, and I saw the value of sleep. I was one of those people that 4 to 5 hours a night was perfect, and I never wanted more unless it was a weekend I might catch up. And I was getting 8 hours of sleep, and I just saw the benefit of that in every aspect of my life. So now I like to sleep 8 hours every single night.
Good for you.
So that was another good positive for me.
Yeah, going to bed early. I don't know how that happened for me, but that started in the past couple of years. Like 10 o'clock is the new 11 o'clock, and 11 o'clock used to be the new 12 o'clock. So maybe that's happening because of age. Who knows?
Oh, yeah. If I can go to bed at 9, I am giddy.
Yeah.
And after 9, it's like, okay, but it's 10 o'clock's the latest.
So what would it surprise us to know about you?
I feel like I'm an open book, so I don't know if I have a lot of surprises, but I would say I think a lot of people might be surprised to know my favorite type of vacationing, because I think people may think I'm a little high maintenance, and I might be. I don't know, but I like just being in the dirt. I like camping. I don't need electricity. I don't need anything fancy. I like fishing. I like cooking on the fire, reading. Getting off the grid is like, that's my favorite time and things to do. And I could totally survive outdoors for months on end and be totally happy.
So what's your favorite campfire meal?
Catching probably a rainbow trout and then grilling it on the fire.
Yum.
And eat the skin too.
Yum.
That may be something surprising too, is I would say, adventurous food. I'll pretty much try anything you can imagine and probably like it. I like some weird stuff.
Yep. We were off the coast of Bimini a long time ago, 7 years, I think. A friend of mine has a property down there, and we reeled in a yellowtail, and he threw it on ice, and I thought, we'll grill it later. He, after it cooled, he chopped it up, and we had sushi on the boat right then and there. He had some wasabi ready and some soy sauce. And you want to talk about a level of freshness, which I'm sure would be similar to your rainbow trout experience. Just like, wow.
So
maybe
good.
even too fresh. But
no such thing.
No such thing. So keeping on the culinary vibe. So what was your ideal perfect meal during the pandemic? Because I know on our home front, we started making soups and just concoctions that we never had the time or the thought to put into it. Because like you were saying, with some stillness, like let's create something. Let's not just grill a steak and, saute some spinach. Let's make something awesome. We made an Indian dish the other night that was just outstanding. Anywho, what you got?
So I would say maybe the most creative thing I did was making teas.
Oh, that's fun.
Because I was growing all the herbs, even the ginger root, and just, I had just an abundance of lemongrass and basil and ginger that I was like, what am I going to do with all this stuff? And I dried it all, and then I made teas, which was, cool. I had never done that before, and the taste of homemade tea is just a completely different experience.
So was this garden a pre-pandemic thing, or was this something
I've
born
always
out of it?
been a gardener, but the gardening became even more abundant when I was home to tend to it more often.
I bet.
But I would say my favorite meal during the pandemic, I was spending, I would say half of the pandemic, the beginning of the pandemic, I was here in Tallahassee pretty much exclusively. And then probably like in that September, October time, I was spending a lot of time at the beach. And I had, grown up fishing freshwater, but I had never really learned saltwater fishing. And so I learned how to fish for pompano and how to get the rig. And so my favorite meal was catching a pompano and then going home and grilling the pompano and then coming up with different sides. And sometimes we'd make homemade salsas to put on it. Sometimes we'd, whatever, but mainly just grilling. Grilling was what we did a lot of. And so the pompano was like, oh, so delicious. And then a lot of zucchinis and squash, things that we could just grill with the fish so that the meal was kind of like one and done and sit outside and eat it and be
Sounds
outside.
perfect.
It was so good. Yeah.
All right. Shifting gears. What would you say your biggest challenge in your career has been? Very broad question.
I know, right?
And I'm saying in your career because I said in life on an episode last year, and our guest, he shared a heartbreaking story of his child passing away during COVID. And I was like, not that we can't have a serious moment on the Biz and Tech podcast, but, I was, you can share something deep if you want, but I was thinking more career-oriented. Career first.
All right. So career-wise, I would say surprisingly not the pandemic. Mm-hmm. Kind of thinking back. So I've been at Rowland for 15 years.
Okay.
So a while.
That's a solid run.
It's a solid run.
I've been at Aegis 16 now.
And I feel like I'm just getting started, right? But I would say the biggest challenge in my career was when I was working with people whose core values didn't align with mine. And therefore, solving problems was very difficult because you could never really solve something that was satisfying to everybody. And so there was always dissonance and there was always a level of untrusting.
Right.
And I feel like there were so many times where I just felt like, it's this company or it's this industry or it's this whatever. And I'm grateful that I listened to my inner voice and just stuck through always knowing there could be a better way, and not really giving up on that idea. And now, where we're at, we have such a strong foundation of people that love each other and that trust each other, but ultimately our core values are in sync. And so when hurricanes come or pandemics come or deaths in people's families that work for us or budget restraints or you name it, Solving those problems when you know that everyone has the best interest of each other is very easy to do, right? So I would say going back in time, that was the hardest part of my career.
Yeah, right on. When awards are coming in and goals are being met and everything's awesome, you don't really see a team for what it is. It's just like, we're number one. We just won the Super Bowl. But when the hurricane comes or when crisis knocks, you see people for really who they are and their strength, and then who needs support and how you can be there for people. We get a lot of wake-up calls here in Florida. Hurricane Michael's always top of mind for me.
Well, and you've been in your business almost the same amount of years I have. So you were there with the economy dropping, right?
Oh, yeah.
In 08,
2008 and 09, those were really thrilling times.
So I was at Rowland during that time.
Right.
And then the hurricanes, right? And then the pandemic. And so lots of turmoil and unknown, future of where do you go from here? What's the answer? How do we solve these problems? And the pandemic was probably the easiest of all of them to get through, surprisingly, just because we had that trust. We had that level of understanding, core values. We knew that the decisions we were making were for the best interest of the people, not only one person's.
Yeah. February 2020, I remember sending a text to two of our managers, and this is 60 days before things started getting real around here, and I'm like, so can we go all remote? Are we good? So say this pandemic comes to the United States, it's not going to happen. Are we ready? Are we ready to do this? And I sent this clip to them. They're like, hell yeah, we're good. And we were. It was it was a little scary at the time, but looking back, it's like we just rolled with it and did what we needed to. But I sent them this clip from Apollo 13. It's a pleasure to fly with you gentlemen when they're all sick with the flu and coming down in the capsule. They don't know if we're going to make it, because that was entering a very unknown era. And here we are again. Who knows what 2022 is going to bring us. It feels like it just started, but we're already at February 16th, 17th. It's flying.
I think, too, just kind of to end on that note,
sure.
I think the biggest benefit of everyone going through the pandemic is, for the first time in my lifetime, everyone had compassion for each other, because everybody knew that everyone was having a bad day or everyone was having a tough time, but the reality of it is, even before the pandemic and after the pandemic, everyone's always having a hard day and a tough day. And if you can remember to just have grace and treat people with compassion, because you don't know what they're going through.
Right.
I think that kind of outlook with your coworkers, with your clients, with your neighbor, with your significant other, and not make assumptions. I think that's the biggest thing that can keep this kind of love fest that I feel has come about keep going.
Yeah. When Matt from Madison Social was on the show, I was like, what was hard about 2020? He's like, firing everyone that worked for me. He's like, I've never thought about mental health, mental illness. He's like, I was down, man. He's like, it was the worst. And, they bounced back. And happy to support that organization. So here's a rando question for you. This is a first-time question, especially for you.
Okay.
So if you could attend any event in the history of the earth, what would it be?
This is the hardest question for someone like me, because I am never a one.
In history of the earth, not history of the United States.
Okay.
I mean, wide open.
I know. I'm the kind of person, I don't have a favorite food. I have 50. I don't have a favorite song. I have 100. I don't have a favorite person. I have 20. So one event is almost impossible to answer. But
I know
maybe period, the Renaissance period.
Ooh, that's interesting.
Could you imagine being around when they realized the world wasn't flat and they created the globe? Or when Newton discovered gravity?
A lot of head scratching.
Gravity,
yeah.
And Leonardo da Vinci, everything he did with the paintings and science. And everything changed in the world between science and art and religion and philosophy and just mind-blowing stuff.
Yeah.
I feel like that would be so interesting to be around, to see the naysayers. Because I mean, think about the stuff that we experience in today of what's real and what's not real.
Yeah,
could you imagine like the world is not flat and the fighting or like just, and then when it was, proven, I just feel like that would be such an interesting time, that anything you ever thought of completely shifting.
And in those days, open philosophy and intellectual ideas were not always welcomed.
No.
Excommunicated. You're a heretic. Execution. Not fun. Mm-hmm. Well, wonderful answer. Thank you for that. So how can our audience learn more about Rowland Publishing and McKenzie? What should we do if we don't have our subscriptions to these magazines?
Yes.
What should we check out first?
Okay, so RowlandPublishing.com has everything on it. So every magazine and then every social media handle that correlates to that magazine. So if you want a one-stop shop to say, okay, what do you guys do and where can I start following you? I would say start there.
Awesome.
Again, we have about 40 different magazines, but I would say these 5 are probably the more niche for where our region is. Tallahassee Magazine,
Tally,
Emerald Coast.
Awesome.
And then McKenzie Burleigh. I'm, on every social platform at Kenzie Burleigh, Kenzie Burleigh. I think this is, an interesting time too, because you can connect and communicate with anybody. And it's amazing some of the people that I've reached out to on DMs, on social media, just like replying to a story and people talking back, right? That's just like a little mind-blowing, that you can really connect with anybody. So it's a fun time, and connecting with you here on your podcast today.
Awesome. Yeah, anytime I write something, I try to include my email address at the end, and I've gotten everything from, hate mail, like, why were you looking at an ESPN app during church? Like, blasphemous. And I'm like, I was just saying it was there. Two, like, wow, you really inspired me to donate to Big Bend Habitat for Humanity. Thanks for having Antoine on the show or writing about him. Awesome. So as we leave today, your closing question, what's the coolest article or issue? What are you most proud of that y'all have put out?
Oh,
See, it's that one again.
I know. You can't ask
everything
me.
In 2018.
I know. Honestly, I couldn't pick just one. I think, like you were saying, when you have someone communicate back to you, it's so amazing. The business owners, the artisans, the creators, that because we put them on a platform to expose their work or expose their services or their products, they say change their life. And that kind of impact creates motivation every day to get up and continue to publish and continue to create and put that content out there. But I would say the most proud story I ever wrote, something that actually has never been published.
Oh.
So I went to Romania on a food assignment, food and wine. So coincidentally, Romania has the deepest history in winemaking. France has gotten, the PR for it, so they think of France, but actually Romania. And they have actually some of the original grapes as well that were stolen into other areas. And so I went there specifically for food and wine, and that was what the story was written on. But my dear friend to this day, Razvan, who was my tour guide, and who is the only entity that is hired by the government to bring in tourism, because it was very new for that country, took me on my journey, and he asked, can I take you into other places that are outside of what the story is about? And I was like, please. And we went to the outskirts of very rural areas that don't have electricity, don't have running water. And I met a gentleman who was a head of the Gypsies. And for the first time in history, they have settled in the outskirts of Romania. And the town that I went to, they called them the Gypsy Castles, and they were made primarily out of cinder block. But then, depending on the level of your wealth, it was evident on the exterior of the castle with, very delicate and just intricate gold and silver, but some ran out of money, and so a lot of these were completely not finished homes. And of course, they didn't have running water in most of them. And so I got to meet with the leader of the Gypsies. and the stories, and it was off the record, but the stories he shared with me and the excitement that he has because he had just become a member of parliament. So he could represent his people for the first time in history. I mean, cool. That is the kind of stuff that
Why has no one ever seen this piece?
Because it's all off the record.
Oh, okay.
So I can't write it, but I can tell stories about it. That's over fun. Campfires and wine one day.
and rainbow trout. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. That was an awesome conversation, and thanks for sharing even answers that required only one answer. Thank you, producer Josh, Level Up Media. That is our show for today. Check out Rowland Publishing online, and check out my book if you haven't picked it up already. It's not Mark Twain, but it's pretty good. Thanks for joining us today. We'll see you next time on the Biz and Tech Podcast. I'm Blake Dowling, Aegis Business Technology, signing off. Adios.